here. He is our resident obsessive person who plays with this 2.5 constantly, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And he's got some pretty solid insight into the difference between preview and experimental.
Yeah.
So,
So basically, what Google did is they initially used the preview model, or maybe a lower version of the model during the experimental times when the preview was not released. But of course, and that's what corporations normally do when you're getting something for free, it's not exactly a full version. So when they wanted to release the pricing version for it, the preview version, they have absolutely dumbed it down and it's just not as good as it used to be. And you can see it in any function calling or tool calling, and even with the lower context window. I mean, this model is capable of 1 million context window, and we have tested it with 200,000 and 250,000 at times, and it was working without any hassle. And now, even with just 32 content, 32K or 40K, and sometimes 50K, the tool calling is just failing, and the model is just failing to, correct itself automatically. Previously, that was never an issue. There was no issue to begin with. I mean, like, it wasn't failing at all in function calling. And now it's failing. Sometimes it corrects itself, and sometimes it just completely fails. And when I'm using boomerang tasks, sometimes I just have to, even with just beginning the conversation, it just fails to use any tools. Even with read, I'm not talking about the complex one, apply difference, editing files. No, just initially starting to read the file, it fails. So I have
yeah,
to terminate and then go back to the orchestrator or boomerang and then ask it to just give the same task again, and it just starts working. So it's just failing too much now.
yeah. Uh, so what happens, guys, is there's this the large language model needs to listen to instructions. Our system prompt, the tool instructions say, here's how you call the read file. And what will happen sometimes is Gemini will go to read a file and it'll wrap it in XML. It'll say something like tool use. Um, and it will put the read file in the XML tags instead of XML tags titled read file. And so it basically just doesn't pay attention to the system prompts sometimes, not all the time. It's inconsistent. We fine-tuned how the app works to try to work better with some of these behaviors, and really all we did is we basically told Roo, when you get this bad behavior, respond, give it another try instead of giving a big red error. That's one way that we fine-tuned it. And so this is sort of the reason why people have been so gaga for Sonnet 3.5 and now 3.7 for so long is because when it comes to tool use, uh, it just pretty much works most of the time. And is it the best at coding? It's pretty good at coding, but it works with tool use. So if you're using in a chat interface, you're asking for code. Well, ChatGPT, Pro, O1, whatever it is, Gemini, they work great. But when it comes to incorporating one of these into your actual software and getting it to abide by your tool calls continually as your context grows up to the max on a consistent basis, that is where Sonnet comes into play, and it just works, which is wild. Google built something that works pretty damn good, but the level of failure is sort of frustrating when you're paying for it. When it's free, it's like, this is annoying. But now that we're paying for it, it really becomes, is this really much better? Because I just paid 25 bucks and it got stuck in a serious way. Whereas with Sonnet, usually when you pay 25 bucks, it makes it to the end. Though, I mean, that doesn't guarantee that the quality of, if you go on a straight up vibe code session, that doesn't guarantee that your quality is going to come out on top. But it does mean that you're still going to get through the task. And I think we've gotten sort of lazy sometimes because we code our software to get used to Sonnet, and Sonnet understands what we're doing, whereas other models don't. And we really, I think it is quite a challenge to figure out how to fine tune the system prompt so that it works in these scenarios when there's variances with, Gemini, because it really is a solid model. I've been using it almost exclusively for what, 2 weeks now. Um, hey, so let's start with the questions. All these
Yeah, if
wonderful
anybody
people
has any
show up.
questions regarding the pricing of experimental or preview or anything, some sort of confusion, we can clear it up.
Oh yeah. What's your name, by the way, God of AI? That's
My name
not
is
your name,
Sharik.
right? Shudik. Okay, because I know your
Yeah,
parents didn't
yeah.
name you God of AI. That would make no sense.
That would be too early, ahead of its time.
Hmm. But you probably can name one of your kids God of AI.
I might name them AGI. No. Yeah, but Google is absolutely shipping these days. I mean, they are on a mission to bury any other proprietary model, any company. Uh,
Yeah.
they're releasing stuff every day. Every day, there's something new. There is no time to breathe anymore.
Yeah. Isn't that true? Yeah, they're definitely keeping people on their toes. Okay, we will wait for some questions and let's discuss local models. Adam, you want to jump on the mic?
Sure. If you hear something in the background, it is my apartment is power washing the pool area right now. So got my headphones on. So hopefully,
You have a pool area.
yes,
Sounds
I have a
awesome.
pool. Yeah, but it's not awesome living in an apartment anyway.
No, I suppose,
No,
eh?
yay, cool. All right.
Oh, hey, go ahead.
There we go. Cool. All right. So we're going to talk about local LLMs, and I have, I think, roughly 3 or 4 actual questions. One thing I want to go over something really quickly is that, if y'all don't know, we have 2 ways of running local LLMs on your device, and that's Ollama and LM Studio. There probably are others. I don't know about the Linux space. I think there's something called LLVM. I think that's right, or LLV, LLM, or something like that.
Okay.
And I mainly use LM Studio, and I use that because I like its discovery mechanism. So if you could go download LM Studio, it has a very nice search feature. If you want to search for Quinn 2.5 coder 4-bit quantization, it's relatively easy to fix or easy to find. And on Hugging Face, which I don't know what that is, Hugging Face is pretty much the place to go get models that have been vetted by various organizations. And so there's an official LM Studio community on there. And they vet their models. They make sure that they work with the system prompts. There have been many, many times in the past multiple years where the system prompt needed to be tweaked a little bit to actually get it to work well. So, like I said, I'm an LM Studio person. I know less about Ollama. Ollama, basically, from what I can see, has a lot of the same features for running LLMs and setting parameters and context windows and turning on KV caching and all kinds of other tweaks
Mm-hmm.
you can make to it. But it's just command line. So if you have a workflow that needs a command line, you have some kind of tools you're writing for a backend system, then probably command line makes a whole lot more sense for you running Elm Studio. But Elm Studio has full open API endpoints. So Elm Studio is a
Yeah.
provider inside of Roo. You just point it at it, and it will give you a list of all the models that you have installed in LM Studio. And LM Studio deals with loading and unloading too. There's a whole API behind the scenes that can say, I want to load this model with this speculative decoding model, and I want a really small VL model for looking at images, because I'm going to submit stuff to it. So
Yeah.
it can deal with all that infrastructure behind the scenes. Okay, so if y'all
I've got it
can,
loaded here. showing that it gives you the option here to select easily discovery. I've got these different models I've downloaded to test, and I haven't used them a lot. If you want, you can take over the screen share and we can put you
Okay.
to the
All right.
center.
Okay. Let me get Elm Studio.
You can share just a window to make it easier so we don't see
Yeah. So I don't see the whole thing.
Discord. Look at that. We capped it. 70 people again. I wish there was a way to drag people into the onto stage. I'd drag that. There's a guy down there, Mr. Ubens, that I'd love to drag onto the stage here.
All right, so I don't have the ability to share my screen. I think you have to unshare yours or turn your sharing off, and then I get the ability to share.
Okay.
It's
Boom.
great.
Stop streaming.
There we go.
Ah, there you go.
Let me put this on another screen.
Hey, welcome, Mr. Ubens.
First time using Discord like this, so excuse my mistakes I'm going to make.
All us 40-year-olds that are confused by Discord. Like, what are these young pups doing these days?
You got to make me a background next time, Hennis?
I just picked one off Google. I mean, we could go for the prison chic again, like your other room there. Here, there. Now I look more like your place.
All right, so
No
you can see
pool in the
mine.
background?
Lex is confused and he's 26. That Lex, you're 20, being 26. That would explain why you just take your ball and go home whenever I upset you.
All right, so I want to know: is it Mr. Ubens or M. Rubens? What is the canonical pronunciation? This is the GIF fight right now.
I'm M. Rubens in Slack and Mr. Ubens in Discord, if that helps.
Okay.
My brother's Danny, so Dr. Ubens for him.
Ah.
Nice.
It's not a fridge in the background, everybody.
All right, so can everyone see? Why is it? It keeps pausing my stream, so I can't see it in the upper right-hand corner. All right.
Yeah, it does that.
Yeah, it's weird. Okay, I'll just let it go. It's pausing to save resources on my M3 Max. Really? Okay. Anyway, all right. So you can see Elm Studio here. So it's a standard Mac app. You have a chat window. You have a developer
And
window.
it is available on Windows and Linux as well. Correct?
Yes. Yeah. Mac, Windows, and Linux. You have developer section. So obviously you have a log down here, so you can literally watch it, talk to Roo if you need to see that. A lot of times, one of the more common questions we have is people install Elm Studio. The default context is 8,192, and Roo goes no. So the first thing you need to do is come in here and set the context window to be something larger. And Elm Studio remembers it, so you can set up, so for all the models I'm about to show you, you can go in and set every single parameter you want to, and you can set up effectively modes. Just like we have in Roo, you can say, hey, this is my, I want to use speculative decoding for my model, and this is one that I don't want to use speculative decoding for whatever reason that might be. So you can configure and do whatever you need to, and save the thing.
Keep to the elevator pitch version
Of what?
of what we're doing here. Too much detail, and the people that aren't super into it are going to go off the rails.
Okay, so what is the remit here? I thought we were supposed to talk about local LLMs,
yes.
and I had a bunch of very specific things about people ask things about parameters.
Okay.
Like parameters.
Then
so
what is the first question? Sorry.
There is no question. I thought I was supposed to come in here and talk about LM Studio.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, do it up. My bad.
Great. Okay, so LM Studio. So anyway, you have these 4 windows. You have a model section in here, and you have Discover. And so you can come in here and search for Quinn 2.5.
That is a handy feature. It makes it much easier than jumping around, downloading models, loading them in, and the cool thing.
Yeah, and so these
select.
and the way that it does it, it ranks it. So you have ranked stuff in here. So these are the ones that the community has picked, the ones the community recommends, and they download it. And then you have below that, down here, you have all the ones that just exist. So on the Mac side, we have GJUFs, which are common models. You can run them on Mac, Linux, and Windows. And you have
Yes.
MLX models, which can only run
Okay.
on the Mac. And so those, the MLX ones are faster because they're tuned to run on top of Metal. So if you're really worried about tokens per second and the speed of a local LLM worries you, then you turn on MLX. So you can come in here, load them. You have the card on the side that has all the stuff in it. It tells you, hey, it's a Quinn architecture, how many parameters, yada, yada, yada. So this lets you run all of this stuff. And then like on the chat side, either one, you can let Roo just load it, or you can come in here and say load model, et cetera, and it's loaded and ready to go. And you can chat to it. This has a simple chat interface, a little bit of history. It's not like Misty or any other of the web-based, Docker-based chat systems, but it gets you there. You can see the model's up. You can see how it responds to things. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whirlwind tour of LM Studio. Does anyone have any questions or want to see anything in LM Studio while I'm here?
What is the system spec? This is an M3 Max 128 gigabyte.
Correct, yes. 16 CPUs, 40 GPUs. So, and I can get maybe 12, maybe 15 or 18 tokens per second on in LM Studio on this
Correct
machine.
me if I'm wrong, but it works out to be equivalent to about a 3080. But
what do you mean a 3080?
And
yeah, roughly. Yeah. Minus
but it
modular
can
memory.
hold larger models, larger context models, correct?
So,
because
yes,
it's slower, but it has technically more GPU, RAM, VRAM.
that was my next thing I was going to cover real quickly.
Okay.
So on the Mac, it reserves 30% for the system usage. So, but there is a P list out there. You can get it up to 112. So you can run a 70 billion parameter model on here if you reboot your machine, turn the P list on, and don't do anything else. So that's kind of.
And then what do you get for tokens per second out of that?
About the same, probably a little bit slower. It's 70 billion. So as your parameters go up, usually your tokens per second goes up. There's more calculation that it has to be done for the inference. So that's kind of how that behaves. And just a quick benchmark for metric use. So you take the number of parameters times the quantization, which is usually 4 or 8, and then times 1.2. And that's roughly the amount of gigabytes you need to run a local LLM in a nutshell.
Okay. Makes sense.
A 32 needs about 40-ish if you're using 8-bit quantization. And if you're using 4-bit quantization, it's roughly half that. So
I wanted to also let people know that if you're into playing around with local models, we do have a local model channel, and Adam regularly
on there.
scrolls through it and keeps an eye on it. And Adam has been really good at answering people's questions that sometimes they're a little worried to ask because they don't want to, be the new person in the chat that's asking the noob question. But noob questions are good. That's what I ask when it comes to local models, personally.
And so, God of AI mentioned speculative decoding. So what speculative decoding is you take a larger model and you attach it to a very small model. So like Quinn has a 0.5 billion model, and I believe it has a 1 billion model too. And what that does is it takes your prompt, does kind of what's called an embedding step, and pulls out kind of like the relevant pieces of that prompt, and then feeds that into the bigger model. And that sometimes can also increase your tokens per second because it's not having to do that attention. And in LM Studio and Ollama, there's this thing called KV caching, which caches some of the computations. It's still kind of experimental. It kind of works most of the time. but it's not a huge benefit like speculative decoding. Speculative decoding actually can bump your tokens per second up to by 25% sometimes. It just depends. And just to give you a little grounding here, so a Mac has a memory bandwidth. Mine has a roughly memory bandwidth of 467 megabytes per second. A 3090 roughly has 800 gigabytes per second to 1 point something terabytes per second on the upper end. And it just goes up as you move up the model chain. So that gives you an idea of the orders of magnitude. So a GPU running local LLM on a 3080 has much less memory available to it, but it's much faster. So
does speculative decoding make the prompt less detailed? Is any context lost like that?
Kinda. So you have a smaller model which has less knowledge. Remember, LLMs don't have knowledge. It's actually just probability and statistics behind the scenes. So
there's my.
Hi, other person.
That's
Hi.
my wife. She's in the background.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so
the just made a joke like, yeah, that guy has a wife. Wow.
Wow. Anyway,
so
nice the answer is kind of. I'm not a AI computer scientist. But yes, it is removing some of the words from it. But a lot of times, if you look at it, so in LM Studio, you can watch speculative decoding happen, and it will highlight the words that it's picking out of the prompt. So you can go see, and I'm pretty sure it's dropping stems and prepositions and all kinds of stuff like that. Stuff that, really doesn't necessarily add a lot of context. In coding, if you're talking about writing English text, then maybe they actually are very important. So anyway, it's a trade-off.
Okay. I would like to shift from local models for a little bit because we're going to have people come and go. And as we accrue questions related to local models, we can sort of try to keep track of that. And I would like to report there's no beer in that fridge, so it's not a good fridge. Okay, let's switch back to my screen here. Ooh, where did we go? Here, do you want to disable your screen?
Oh, sorry.
No, I don't even know how to do that. This
fancy
that, software.
I don't think moderators can kill someone else's screen.
Oh, well, there was a time where we had power, but now moderators don't. Share this screen. And okay. I think we're good now. Okay. So, what do we have for questions? I think there was a light bulb on one I put. So, look, last 100 messages for any questions. List me questions. Let's see how good the bot is at figuring this out for me. I can't make it full screen. Can anyone see my screen, or do I need to make it smaller?
I can see it.
We have a question. Is Quasar any good? That's a good question. It is pretty damn good for what it does. It's pretty quick, though it has slowed down. I don't know if it picked back up. I didn't look today. But it is actually, on our benchmarks, it finishes pretty solidly. So you do have to adjust It doesn't just work the way 3.7 or sometimes 2.5 does, so you have to change your workflow a little bit. But if you're looking for a model that's free right now, it is a powerhouse. And it doesn't seem to have the tool call confusion that 2.5 has when it doesn't work, which is nice. Yes, this is being recorded, Juicy Bunny. Can someone explain the story behind the name? Says somebody else. By the way, I got the bot to parse through all these questions. It's quite handy. I built a MCP with Roo that can pull up all the questions. So, okay. In the meantime, can someone explain the story behind the name? So the name actually comes from our parent company, Roo.vet. What happened is they have a bunch of in-house engineers, and they were using this software some of you might have heard called Klein once upon a time, and they wanted to have this what's it called, the auto approve button. And so they made a pull request, and that pull request never did get accepted, and it became what Roo is. So the name, we really just inherited it from the company that had engineers that wanted to use Klein better, and now they don't. Now they use Klein better every day. So another question: when are we getting MCP Marketplace? You want to jump on the mic with me here, Matt?
Give me the hard questions.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it's something that people have been wanting for a while, and just trying to figure out the right way to support it from the back end perspective. I mean, one thing for us at RooCode is we don't actually have any back end APIs right now. So that would be something for us to add. So just trying to think through like whether it makes sense for us to do that. I've also seen some people in the community ask for the ability to set up their own MCP marketplaces, like for within their company, for instance, to try to feature ones. So yeah, it's something that, especially as MCP takes off, it's becoming a higher and higher priority. So would love to discuss. I don't know. Do we already have a channel to discuss this in, Hannes? If not, we should probably create one.
Oh, there we go. So we're making it. So I guess the biggest issue revolves around the curated list. Is that correct? Because here's the thing that I've noticed with MCPs is even when I went to Klein Store, I went in and I went and installed one. It had one that I thought this looks great. That does something I wanted to do. Not only did it not install that well because it gave instructions to the large language model to install it, which to me is maybe 90% or less success rate. Um, we would want it to actually have proper install instructions, so it is truly a one click. But secondly, the 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 curated list, it had, they work, but we would want to have ones. If we have a store that says the Roo store, we want them to be kick-ass. And so we do want to give people the opportunity to more easily install them. And we're looking at options for how we can make it easy for you guys to connect to these other options like Glamma and even the client marketplace. But if we're going to put our name on something and call it the Roo, MCP marketplace, those are going to be ones that work and work well. People sometimes say that we are a bit experimental and less stable, and I disagree. The reason why we refuse to put out the MC marketplace is I'm not. We support it, the protocol, but I'm not going to put out something half baked. We're going to put it out and it's going to work. So, and if it doesn't, we'll put a bug release out 6 times in that day to get it fixed. Right, Matt? His mic is off,
Oh,
but I saw
yeah, only 6 times. Is it a weekend or something? But
it.
yeah, well,
Yeah, I got to go to the park with the kids. Okay. When it comes to, okay, I'm looking for questions here. Gemini 2.5 Pro experimental versus Gemini Pro preview. So I don't know if people were here before, but it seems that the Pro preview and experimental, they get very different results when I use them. Like very different results. The number of tool call failures is way higher with preview. What is the most cost-effective way to run larger models locally? Okay, that's a local question. We'll queue those up in a bit. Local model provides biggest context. Good questions. I feel like the Roo definition of task completion has gotten weaker. What are ways to make sure that when it finishes a coding task, that is now resulting in an error? You know, okay, so they want it to finish. That is an interesting one. What I notice is when that happens with me, that usually is for some reason the errors haven't been detected or the instructions that I have in my client rules haven't been followed. Sorry, Roo Rules. I'm sorry, guys. They haven't been followed. My instructions are to, at the end of a cycle, to actually run npm check or, test. Matt, do you have any thoughts on that? On once complete, making sure that it actually is finishing the thing that it started?
Yeah, I mean, some models are better at this than others. I think a lot of it kind of comes down to the prompt engineering and just giving it really explicit instructions and potentially doing some of these boomerang your orchestrator things where you have different models checking each other's work to make sure that they actually did what you asked them to do. Um, Power steering can help a little bit, but yeah, I found that it really depends on which models you use and how they're feeling that day. So, um, yeah, I don't know. But I think in general, the orchestration helps with these things, with accountability.
Okay. No, that is a good point. The orchestration. Do I want to proceed? I am attempting to one-shot something. Okay, questions. Looking for questions. Oh, can you show a proper setup of the new directory-based instructions? Roo rules, roo mode slug, etc. I can make something up here. It's going to totally distract from our one shot here. I'm going to pause that for a second and let's see what happens. So what you would have is you would have dot rules or dot roo as a folder. And within that folder, you would have a rules folder. Correct, Matt?
How are you spelling rules? I did not go for the funny version.
I put it properly. I wanted
Okay, fair.
rules to be ROOLS or something, but he wouldn't do it. I begged him. Okay.
Yeah, Hannah and I fought over that. But yeah. So Rue and then rules RULES, and yeah, with the slug in there for the more specific
So
mode specific
in
rules.
and what can I put in here? Any file.md. Will that work?
Yeah, you can put in any type of text files. They'll be if you put in multiple, they'll get stitched together in alphabetical order of file name. So a lot of times people do like 001 and then their general one first. But if you just have one, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So I'm not going to put anything in this file yet because I would like to resume this task. Somebody had a question. They said, is it impossible to have active windows editing to okay, so when you're sort of playing around with your a file, you're scrolling and Roo is doing its thing, and suddenly it just changes focus to the one it's writing, Matt, while you're typing something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get how that's really annoying for people. I mean, I've used Cursor as well. It's definitely a smoother experience. For better or
On
for
that
worse,
front.
yeah, on that front. But on the editing front, but I think they also fork the entire editor, which it's a little bit more flexibility, but more commitment there for them. For us, we're currently very intertangled with like the diff view editor. All of our edits go through that, so you can see, right in the view what it is. I haven't found a way to get around that. I know that some people have been experimenting though with doing edits outside of the diff view. So I'm definitely interested in that. I think it would be nice to have more more optionality around it, but just haven't. I think we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, that's fair. So it's not that we don't get annoyed too. It's that it's just not as easy as flicking a switch at this point. But it is on our radar. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, it's definitely on the radar. I mean, it's something that would be nice. I know we have some community contributors who have been exploring it as well. I think just having a better idea of what's possible through some exploration would be great for getting the momentum going on it.
Yeah. Okay. I am switching my one shot away from preview, or away from experimental to preview, and I'm going to see what happens here. I know it's not that scientific to only do it once, but it failed pretty quickly on the subtasks. I've already provided. Okay. I don't know what your beef is there. Logo is. Oh no! I undid my changes. I dropped the logo. Dang it. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, questions. Do we see any questions coming? We made it. Okay. Is there any way to go back to the parent task from a subtask without having to close the current tab? No, that is something which may be part of Boomerang Tasks 2.0, which we're designing now, and we're sort of paying attention to community, feedback, what people are saying, and then we're experimenting with different options. Add that there. Let's try this again. Okay. Are there the tools described in system prompts defined only in MDXML directly to the LM, or is that just a manual for LLM when in fact LLM can invoke actual JS functions? That's a Matt question.
Yeah, right. I want to make sure I understand that. I mean, the way it works right now is that we ask the models to output the XML that matches the tool calling format. I know that a lot of different providers have their own like built-in tool calling format, and we might want to explore that someday. But Aider did some research into that and found that the structured JSON tool calling, at least at the time they did it, didn't perform as well as a XML based custom one. Um, these are things though that as we get our evals product working, I'd love to have like more scientific things for us to say because everything changes so fast. And pointing at an Aider blog post from a year ago, like I'd love to just be able to try these things out now and see how they do. So stay tuned. I'm definitely excited to test it out.
In other words, can I create new tools without creating an MCP? Yeah, no, not without editing the app yet. But an MCP is actually a pretty good way to create new tools. It is. I have found it's actually a pretty good way to test new tools. You play with it, you get it to work, and then um, if you want to incorporate that into Roo and make a pull request, you've already got you've got it rolling. So that's a good way to test it out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would like to chime in. You can truly do anything with an MCP. So, like in some of the other channels, we've been playing around with there's a mobile simulator MCP out there. So literally, it will start up simulators for you in the mobile space, iOS and Android. It will load apps on it. It can give you lists of all the simulators you have installed, and all of them can just go to town on it. Another cool one is Bifrost. Bifrost MCP lets your LLM actually control and call VS Code APIs. So there's an entire framework behind the scenes. When you're editing a file in a certain language, there's an LSP behind the scenes that can give you a list of all the symbols, can give you a list of all references, can give you a list of all dependencies. It's just kind of built into VS Code doing what it does. And so that MCP would let your LLM do whatever it needs to do to understand your code better. And Lix is working on a cool tool that the PR will land hopefully here within the next few weeks, maybe, that does the same thing, but uses a quadrant, which is an external indexing system to let the LLM understand your code better. So
some of these other companies that are a little more closed than we are, well, completely closed, they do indexing through the use of their own models they use to help with it and their own databases. Um, the thing is, we're pretty open. So our version, if we get one to work that satisfies us, will be where we're using options that you can host your own, or you can pay for a hosted service. When it comes to the embedded model, we want to be able to choose our own embedding model and the quadrant host in this case. So that is something that Lix, he's here, Daniel, he's here in the chat with us, but he's too scared to come on the mic. He's only 26, so he's still a young pup. But he's been working on really hard. He actually worked on it for quite some time a few months back and hit a bit of a wall and got busy, and now he's back and he's making huge progress. I tested it yesterday, sort of. I've been trying to test it. I haven't since he made some updates, but I will keep people posted. You will see it if it works. Trust me. Okay, questions. Here we go. I've got one second. Can we have profiles in Roo where we could try different custom prompts in a new profile and see how well it works compared to the default prompt? That way we could easily compare between profiles and switch the profiles as per our needs. So here's the thing about system prompt. The system prompt isn't simply just one text file saying, hey, here's what you need to do, here's how you need to work. It's the combination of a bunch of switches. So you have this enabled, you have that enabled. You're using this model, this provider. And so it is generated as you make your selection. So if you just dump in your own system prompt, it doesn't know what model's being used. So it doesn't know how to work differently this way or that way in terms of, for example, browser use. The browser use part of the system prompt doesn't show up when you're using Gemini, but it shows up when you're using Sonnet. So it's what I'm saying is it's dynamically generated. And to your question about being able to test them, what we are doing to improve the system prompt is someone who's not here today, Chris, he's one of our developers. He has developed a evals system that will allow us to tweak the system prompt and run tests. One cool thing is we tested the other day Gemini 2. I don't remember exactly what iteration, but we tested it and it was not liking our system prompt. I think it finished like 26% of the evals. Terrible. That's not even usable. I think it was Flash 2.0. We made two minor tweaks to the system prompt and it jumped to over 50. I think it jumped to 56%, which is huge. And so that gives us hope that really we just need to look at the prompt and make a tweak, run a test, make a tweak, run a test. And what we're going to do is as we refine these evals methods, we're going to give you the power to run these tests too. They can be pricey, so if you want to pay out of your wallet, be my guest. But you'll be able to actually do things like use the footgun prompting, which Murillo is highlighting in the chat, where you can override the system prompt. And what you would do is you would copy the system prompt, then you would paste it into a file and you would modify it and override it, basically. And you'll be able to run these evals doing that to see what works. And we're really looking forward to people telling us, hey, here's what you need to change in your prompt. And people making pull requests, getting us to change our prompt, because I think that the secret sauce behind how a lot of these tools work, Klein, Cursor, Windsurf, whatever, is the instructions provided to the model. We've noticed that every model responds differently. And we think that it would be really neat, though this is a little out of our scope at this point, but who knows, maybe someone will help us with a pull request. We would love it if we had a complete different system prompt for, some of the major models where people could develop system prompts, run evals on them, and then submit them so that now when you select, X model or this model, A, B, C, your system prompt is slightly different based on proven tests, a proven methodology for making sure that we're running something that actually works. Because I go bonkers when I get this. If you look at my screen, I'm in the red screen again. This is me running on trying to one-shot a Next.js app with Gemini 2.5.
And to tie this back into local LLMs, one thing you all have to be careful when y'all are running 0-day LLMs that get released the day of is that sometimes the prompt template is not quite right. And one of the symptoms of that is it's spewing garbage into your chat, basically. So it's just giving you a bunch of garbage and stuff. And a lot of times that could be like a brace is left out, something really silly and stupid like that, because there's no syntax checker for prompt templates and things like that, and substituting variables in and stuff like that. So just something to be careful of when you grab a 0-day LLM from Hugging Face or from the GitHub repo. It's happened in the LM Studio. It's happened in LM Studio maybe 10 or 15 times. Just like little itty bitty tweaks that it needed to have made to it. And then it suddenly, like Hannes said, performed, 30% better or 50% better or 100% better sometimes. So
yeah, no, that's a good no, that's a good point. Thank you. It's a huge impact because I've seen a number of posts where people say things like, why is it just going in a loop? And well, that is one of the reasons you can have it going in a loop. Okay.
Hey, just to illustrate it to other people, what was the little tweak y'all made that made the eval work so much better in the system prompt?
What was it? It was one of the tweaks would have been I think it was this one. So the previous format, if you look at my screen here, let's zoom in for the people that need glasses. Can you guys see that well? One of the this is how the format was fed into when the LLM would read, or when Roo would read a file. This is how it was presented. It would say, okay, read file, blah blah blah, result this, and the content of the file actually could confuse the LLM. It didn't know where to assume where it started and where it ended. So there are instructions in the prompt before this, and there are instructions after this. So if you're using what's it called? If you're using power steering, for example, and they would get mixed in to what the LLM would sometimes assume was part of the file. And I actually noticed this when it was trying to append a file and just add a line at the end. And so it did a search and replace. It searched for the last line and replaced it. And it actually searched part of something that wasn't the file. So adding this made a huge difference. And then also one other thing was we changed some wording on there we go. So the wording in the system prompt referred to the apply diff tool as diff. So it said use the read file tool to get the latest content of the file before attempting the diff again. So we changed it to use the read file tool to get the latest content of the file before attempting to use the apply diff tool, because apply diff is actually what we call the tool. And these minor tweaks changed the effect, made Gemini 2.0 that much more effective. Matt, you want to say something? You're showing some stuff here. Oh, yeah, I like that PR. Should I pull that up on screen?
Just to show that indefinite articles make a difference in prompt engineering. Be very, very, it's like telling your 6-year-old what to do. It
I
literally
think
is like
maybe
that.
we need like a someone who's actually good with language to help us with adjusting the prompts, because that's a good point.
Yeah, someone whose 6-year-old listens to them, I do not qualify. So,
Yeah. Yes, putting a comma makes a difference. Um,
I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. If you need my help.
do they listen to you?
no, they
Yeah,
don't.
they do.
No, they don't. He's lying.
Yeah, they do. They're not here. See, I can talk
Yeah,
without any problem.
They're
a
listening
real
because
a
they're
real
not there.
prompt engineer. I like it.
My wife listens too. Yeah, you do. Yeah, honey. Yeah, see? No. If she hears me, I'm in
Oh, please
trouble.
don't do that. You're gonna regret
No,
it.
sorry. And you're gonna see the fridge come down on my head. Okay, so what do we have in 3.11.11? Fix highlighting interactions with mode profile model. Okay, that one is handy. That's definitely quality of life. Add the ability to set a host header. Do you want to explain to us how that makes a difference, Matt?
Yeah, you're seeing how the sausage is made before Hannes cleans these up for consumption. But this is just a request for people who want to use Roo within their companies. Sometimes there's they have to go through the OpenAI compatible provider, and so this one in particular was to configure a proxy. So, not necessarily worth talking about. Besides that, I feel very interested in helping people set these things up as is necessary to work within their company. So please reach out if you need help.
Okay,
Because that literally could be the difference between it getting used in a company or not. So
big time.
don't feel shy about asking us for stuff like putting bearer tokens in there, things, all kinds of things that your company may use to control and monitor how AI is used inside their company.
You can turn your camera on, by the way. We're doing the camera thing anyways. This is our remote podcast at this point. And you're so pretty to look at anyways, Adam. Oh, here he comes. Hey, the pressure washing stopped. That's nice. Okay, let's look at the terminal, the working directory. I like this one. Eric came up with this. Someone on Reddit said, "Hey, why does Roo always get confused about what directory it's in?" And so Eric, I asked him to respond because I thought it was a VS Code issue, and he's our terminal expert. He's the guy that um, digs into all these issues related to terminals. And he, instead of responding, well, he sort of responded, and then he just made a fix. And I was like, oh, well, not what I was expecting, but I like that. I'm going to ask for his input on Reddit more. And his improved the read file XML output. If you saw, I sort of pulled up my pull request. Eric fixed it and did it properly. He refactored how I did it, so it's a much more scalable and usable method. Mine was a get this in quickly fix, and his was a do it right fix. So that's the difference between the community manager and someone who is a engineer.
So how can we use this Eric 2.5 Pro model that you're using these days?
Secret.
Complain about stuff on Reddit. I think that's how you prompt it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna fix it.
Hey, we unbanned somebody yesterday because they complained on Reddit. And you know what? I don't think it said I banned them at like 1:30 in the morning. And I didn't even put a reason. And I don't ban a lot of people. So I looked up. I don't know what they did. I think I must have pocket. I swear it was a pocket ban at 1:30 in the morning. Um, follow. Okay, follow symlinked rules. Can you tell us what that is, Matt?
Yeah, so we've been making a lot of changes to the rules folders and directories. And it's been triggering it's been spurring a bunch of feedback from the community, which I think is really interesting. Like one thing we did was, for instance, was we stopped trying to read in cursor rules and Clyde rules files, which made the code simpler. But I heard from a lot of people that they wanted to be able to share rules between different editors and basically not to have like a million different rules files. So what this does is it means you can make a symbolic link or a soft link from a file that's in another directory. Maybe it's one of your cursor rules. And if you just put that inside the Roo Rules folder, it'll be the same file in both places. So if you add something to it, it'll get updated in both places. Or you can even make a symbolic link just to your cursor rules file folder in general, make that whole thing the rules folder. So it just makes it easier for people to share things, share rules files without repeating themselves. So hopefully it addresses some of the feedback we've been getting, but definitely let me know if you all need help with it or have other ideas.
Okay, now we have one there that says we're going to make that you made subtasks less ugly, I think is what it says. Is that correct? Okay, you said it in different words. You said improve subtasks UI. Oh, yes, so you made them less ugly. So let's see how it looks. Let's do an update. If you guys look here, we have a subtask. Is it going to work historically, by the way?
We'll see.
Okay, let's refresh this. Where's my update? Give me an update. No, doesn't want to do it.
You can just
Oh.
right click on it, yeah, and do install and say install specific version.
Yeah.
You right click on it.
Okay. Ah, crap. I clicked into this window. For some reason, whenever I click into that window, it just starts, VS Code starts spinning on me.
You
See
can do
that?
it on a drop down of uninstall also.
Install specific version. Hey, you got
There's
the
also
power washer going on.
there's also something in
I
the
found it
command
yesterday.
palette to
Playing
check
around.
for updates.
I did. I ran the little check for updates here. I clicked the little instead of the command palette, but now I'm definitely in spinny hell. So let's close that. Updates. Okay, let's check for extension updates. Give it to me, and nothing happened. You sure it's out there?
Let me check.
I think he tricked us. It hasn't been deployed yet. I said install specific version, and
Lick's got it.
well, reload. Oh wow, that's nice. See how fast that this computer is an M4 Max with 128 gigs of RAM. Are you supposed to restart these things more than every month? I
I
think
haven't
so.
restarted my Mac in over 3 months, I think.
Well, see,
I
you don't need to.
I restart
And
my dev
go ahead.
environment once a week on Mondays. It's like a ritual on Mondays. Just update everything, brew update, everything else, reboot it. It likes you better.
Well, apparently, it does not like it, so I'm going to do it the other way. Oh, by the way, our one shot, sort of, I did have to press continue a few times, but it worked with 2.5 preview, whereas it hit the red errors on 2.5 experiment. So there's a back and forth. Let's go to docs.RooCode. This is a tutorial, a live tutorial on how to install RooCode. Hey, apparently that doesn't work, so we are going to go down to a release page. Download the file. Hey, do we have any more questions, by the way? I'm going to look on my other screen here. Is this being recorded? Said somebody again? No, that was still the first question, wasn't it? Yes, it's being recorded. In the meantime, okay. Yeah, those are old questions. Gemma 312B good enough for agent support? Is it? That was the last question I had here. Did we already answer that?
I personally don't think anything under 14 billion parameters. Maybe Gemma 12. It's close to the number of parameters, but I
What if
usually don't
someone
run
could?
anything under 14. So usually it's
Yeah.
20 and above. But like I said, it depends on what you're doing. in RooCode, we always assume people are coding. I know a lot of people that use it to generate text for D&D campaigns and people that are working on Twine visual novels in it and all kinds of stuff like that. So for pros, it might be perfectly adequate. For planning, it might be perfectly adequate.
Okay, here we go, guys. Look at my screen. You see subtasks? Boom. Look how beautiful that is. Subtask instructions.
Oh,
No, you
wow.
can't click on it yet, but
Woohoo!
That looks
it looks
Nice.
it looks better than the instructions. Okay, let's look into one of the subtasks. How does that look? I mean, we still have, what's this little box down here? Why is it always there? Anybody?
Yeah, I ran out of steam last night trying to clean this one up a little bit. I'd also love to put the green text within the. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
It's
but
like
that box has nothing to do with subtasks. I don't think that one's been showing up for weeks.
an XML artifact of like the subtask stuff when I was looking at it last night. But yeah, that page is next. Lix was asking about going forward. Can you do a new subtask or kick off a new subtask somewhere?
Okay,
It
let's kick
should
off a new
have.
subtask. Okay, so just so you guys know, we do have a bouncing logo over here. Next.js app, it worked. I'm going to start a new one and say, can we add a dark mode toggle? Now, I am not giving it any context about anything. Let's give it the chance and see what Root does on their own. Yoink. Okay, it's creating one. Whoop. Okay. What are you looking for here, Matt?
I just wanted to show the return of the subtask, like when it gets back into the main task. That part is also dialed going forward.
Okay. I'm going to, I unchecked the approve for that.
But yeah, so I don't know how long it's going to take to finish this task. So
I
just
just
in
told it
general.
dark mode.
Okay.
Okay, in the meanwhile, I do have some more questions that popped up here. Oh, the bot is taking a little time, but it did its trick. It's scrolling around like a maniac. Anyone know if the API for Gemini 2.5, this is a question for you, God of AI.
Yeah, where is this question? I mean,
Anyone know if the
anyone?
API, it's like 5 up. Anyone know if the API for Gemini 2.5 are rate limited per API or per Gmail account?
It's rate limited per GCP account, and in one Gmail account you can create 12 accounts, and in some accounts they allow you to create 25 even. So it depends how much you have in the GCP.
Yeah.
And you cannot just create multiple API keys within the same in the Gemini. Google AI Dev and think that it's a different GCP. You need to create in Google Cloud a different GCP if you want to have more rate limits.
Oh, okay. Per project is what somebody
Yes.
said. Okay, so Matt, you see here we have a finished subtask.
Yeah, if you hit complete subtask and return, that was the only thing I wanted to show was.
Now, question. So subtask completed, you can review the results. Now it's going to feed this back, correct? My green
Yeah,
box?
I want to clean that up later today so that the green text is actually inside that subtask completed box. I just ran out of steam last night, but
Why?
yeah,
Why did you run out of steam?
it's 3 in the morning, but need more steam.
You just have to change time zones in your head, and it was only like 11.
Yeah,
Or go to Hawaii in your head, and it's like,
I hit
I
the
don't
hit
know.
the button. People are waiting for me to answer more questions.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the main thing I wanted to show is just that it styles the return as well to try to make it a
One,
little cleaner.
one way, other way. I like that. Okay, more subtasks instruction. Implement dark mode. I don't know what it's doing. I have not read any of this. Proof.
Can I answer this? Can I ask this question's come in a few times about the, let me try to
Go
find
for it.
it, the system prompt. So the question, I just want to make sure I get it. When Roo is updated, are the system prompts always overwritten from the new update? So the answer is yeah. The system prompt within the Roo extension, the default system prompts are updated. Um, any kind of foot gun overrides you still have, or your custom instructions, those are preserved. So those are not updated. I think the potential downside of that is that the system prompt for Roo and the tool definitions can change in a way that gets out of sync with the overrides, and we've seen that a few times. So that's something to be aware of when you're doing the foot gun mode, is that it is, any update could potentially break it. I think
Yeah.
hopefully going forward, if we have more like interpolated variables and things like that, we can make that a little bit better. But it does make me a little bit nervous. I think at first, I felt really good about individual people using the foot gun prompts to like experiment with like, can I make this thing work in a local model with a much smaller prompt? But what I get a little nervous about is when we bundle it up and we kind of package it up to people who don't really know what they're getting into, and then those people, their Roo breaks when the version updates and they don't know what to do about it. So that's something to think about. I don't know if I'm still answering the question, but just food for thought there to you, foot gunners. And let me know in chat if I actually answered your question or not.
Yeah, one of the tensions we're going to have going forward, we probably have it right now, is the amount of power we give people to change stuff like that versus people that just want to pick up Roo and treat it like Cursor, pay some money, and start coding. So
Yeah.
Would it be possible to have a basic or an advanced toggle in the RooCode so professional people can choose to advance and change stuff, and other people can just keep on using basic so they never see these things? I mean, of course, they can just on one click choose to go advanced, and a lot of people might still do it anyway, just out of curiosity and still mess things up. But that would give them some option to, just keep it basic and just don't touch the stuff that they don't want to, they're not aware of.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going for, is making it so you can use Roo and have a pretty good experience at first and not really fall too deep into the details. But it's also really important to me that Roo gets better the more you use it, and that there are ways for people who are really invested to make decisions that might be different than the default.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that we could invest more in, I think, is just making sure that people get the right level of difficulty at the right point and the right warnings and things. So definitely feedback heard on that. But it does bring me a lot of joy to see the things that people get really creative with, even when they're dangerous. Because I think at least that's the philosophy I have about this: is you're in control. You should be able to make these choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
No,
always using
that's
some sort of modified version of Roo all the time. As soon as you guys send an update, I make some my personal changes, and that's why I can never complain about any issue because I'm always using a modified version.
yeah. Well, that's wonderful. We would forward you on to yourself to get support anyways. Um, what as you're an advanced user, what is the recommended options for having memory bank? Um, we don't have any solid recommended options for that yet because the tool's changing so fast. Using the best method, the most effective method um, for prompting is using things like boomerang mode and providing it context as you go to a degree, because it has some context exploration tools built in, absolutely. But your project, or should know your project. Well, I guess shouldn't, I mean, right or wrong, who knows? Often know your project better than anyone else. And so giving it context is key. It's sort of like if you call tech support. Yes, you have tried all these 10 things before you call the tech support agent, but the tech support agent doesn't know that. So they ask you, have you tried turning it on and off again? Which is key because as somebody who is sort of a techie, well, I hope so. I've had lots of people who sort of roll their eyes at me when they're asking me for help, and I'm go, okay, well, did you unplug it for like 5 minutes? And they're sort of like, why are you bugging me with this? Just can you fix my computer? And then they do that, and it works, and they're sort of like, oh, okay. And so context is key, and knowing exactly what you have done and how you've done it doesn't help the large language model understand anything about what you've been doing. So you ask it to do something, and it idiotically, or it feels idiotically, starts going through this process, which feels like obvious, like I've already done that. But so when describing a problem, it's not as easy as just feeding all the context of the code in. And here's one thing that I've noticed impacts your use. People want memory bank and all this, but if your code is full of comments, those comments are often not in agreement with one another. And so those comments influence the large language model as you go. They significantly. I was working on a experimental project where I 100% vibe coded it, and I didn't look at anything. And then I got to a place where it just stopped working. So what I did is had Roo strip out all the comments, and it responded 100 times better immediately. So if you're going to have comments, make sure they're extremely accurate. Otherwise, just don't have them. That's my thought, by the way. What do we have
Now,
going
chime
on?
Google has this issue. Excuse me. Google has this issue of excessively commenting on
Even when you
every
tell it
single
not to,
thing. I mean,
yes. It says
I mean,
remove
every
this.
single line is, yeah. I mean, for a 50 LOC, Google just makes it 125 or something with its comment, and it also increases the context size for no reason. I mean, for really, really simple things, it's making comments and just making everything so difficult.
And the
I mean,
first
maybe
pass,
it's
it
coded.
works. It gives
Mm,
it context, the comments do. But the second pass,
mm,
those comments are no longer applicable, like remove this
mm.
um, function.
Yeah, and as for your question about the memory bank, what I experimented really early on was creating a task-based memory bank system. Like right now, what you're experimenting with is more like what Scotty Mac did, right? Creating different files for a memory bank. What I experimented with was that initially we create some files with project overview and design patterns and stuff like that, but then and there you create tasks, different task files, and inside each task file, because you have just started and the context is very low, the LLM is able to understand you properly, and you give it tasks to create separate task files and give specific tasks in that task file. And also if one task is dependent on another task, suppose if you're reaching to task number 6 and that is dependent on task number 2 and 3 and 5 but not 4, so you only mention that task as a dependency. So when the subtask goes and reads the overall overview and then its task file, it knows that it also needs to read that task file as a dependency. So then it has the enough context, but not all the context, and that
Well,
helps in a larger project.
I have noticed because I'm experimenting. So someone said, "Is there a? Do you think something like RooFlow will eventually be incorporated into RooCode?" Well, I've been experimenting because we do want to, but I'm trying to come up with something that works most of the time before we would incorporate it. And if I can't and no one else has, then we're not going to incorporate it because again, we're not putting out something that's by nature broken for most people. Um, and what I experienced is that when I gave it context of all the other subtasks, it totally biffed it. Did not work at all. It
Oh,
just threw it off. It ended up in loops. When I give it too little, it worked better. And I'm trying to find the happy medium. In terms of are we going to include that? One of the things that is a big factor for us is figuring out how to use our evals to test if a memory bank solution is working effectively. And so right now our evals wouldn't do that, but they do have the framework that would allow for us, once we make them a little less beta, it will allow for us to experiment with that. Because again, everybody loves to tout memory bank and it always works beautifully out the gate. But I really don't care if it works out the gate that well, because Roo works out the gate beautifully by itself. I want it to be able to work on my existing code project that I'm always monkeying around with. And I really don't like when I'm getting duplicate methods all over the place and comments going crazy, even though my memory bank tells it not to. So maybe we will have something like RooFlow incorporated, but I can't promise you. We're trying to figure it out. It's just there's only so many hours in a day, and with all the people experimenting, I would have expected if it was easy enough to come up with, someone would have come up with something at this point. And RooFlow is the best option to a lot of people. But when I've run it, it did not incorporate well with my projects. So I would have to try it again since it's been revamped a number of times.
And to be very honest, a lot of people using memory bank, are they using it with a paid model? Because memory bank increases the context size and input output tokens by like 4 or 5 times, and it increases cost by a lot if you're using a paid model. But with
Mhm.
free models, who cares? I mean, like, it doesn't matter how many requests it's make and what's the context size, as long as we have subtasks and memory bank and all the stuff like that. So it really, even if I think Roo is releasing memory bank feature, it should really be optional. I mean, like, it's not be the default method, because how else are everyone going to, accommodate with the costing of the memory bank?
Yeah. Somebody asked, is there a good solution when the baked in knowledge of an LLM is on an old version of a dependency? So I guess API docs and such, um, or, whatever, library docs, constantly reverts to the older version, breaks everything. Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. This has annoyed me to no end. When I was working on my Discord bot, I ran into this problem and I got annoyed and I built an MCP that solved the problem for me. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't work well enough for every situation because the docs for all these different libraries and whatever documents of all natures are in different formats. So it's really just scraping them on mass ends up with a big mess. So you need to be able to
Mm.
scrape them fairly selectively, so you end up with the actual content you're looking for. And then you can feed it to a RagDocs model. So that is the best solution, but it isn't a polished solution yet. I can point you in the right direction if you want to DM me. Um, and if somebody knows of a polished MCP that has come out recently, please post that, because the doc scraping is really the most difficult part. Retrieving, easy peasy.
Mm.
Oh, and one thing also, I have noticed on smaller libraries. So when I'm using the fast MCP TypeScript library written by PunkPy, um, I just used Git ingest on the entire repo and excluded a few of the unnecessary files. I think like package.lock, um, and then I just feed that into the context at the beginning of the task. It's sort of a hack method, but it works. And then once my MCP grows enough, it actually works pretty good. That the new methods and uh, syntax match the way that you already have written. It doesn't keep. It takes the suggestions from your newly, the stuff that followed the new rules instead of doing it the baked in wrong way.
Yeah,
And
including it in the
sorry, go ahead.
prompt or as context. Sorry, including the prompt or context is the only surefire way to make sure that your LLM actually sees it. Because even if you have an MCP behind the scenes, you have to count on the LLM going, "Oh, I don't understand the newest version of whatever. I'm going to go talk to this to figure out the version." that I should be
I would
using?
say it's a search documentation is the name of my MCP or
Yeah.
the tool. And I simply would say use the search documentation tool if you look at my screen. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and I wouldn't say use it when you're lost. I would say before doing anything related to this, use the search documentation tool. So then it would search it, and then yeah.
It all really goes down to how we're prompting our LLM, basically.
which is the struggle. Is there a way to have the orchestrator read the instructions from the mode before assigning the subtasks? Well, the orchestrator does does read the instructions of the. It reads the first sentence of the persona. So when you go here, you are Roo, a highly skilled software engineer with extensive knowledge in many programming languages, frameworks, design patterns, and best practices. This is part of the system prompt. So if I look at my system prompt here, I'm going to show you guys. Oop, and we will go down to there is a section in your system prompt where all your modes are described. And so you want to include in your first sentence of your role definition enough information that the orchestrator can reasonably choose the correct mode. Does that make sense? I think it was Soy Henry. You're welcome.
It also still
Would be
depends on the LLM. I mean, like for these modes, it's quite normal. I mean, like for coding tasks, it's always going to go to coder. But if you have custom modes, then you might want to, give specific instructions to orchestrator if you want to use it like that. Because, like in my custom modes, I have a DevOps engineer, a front end developer, and a back end developer, and I have quite few modes. So sometimes what happened was that after system architect and design, UI UX design, it was giving the initial task to DevOps developer instead of the front end developer, and I had to
Yeah.
cancel that subtask and tell it to go to the front end developer as it's more suitable for this sort of work. So then it did it. But then after I gave it some more instruction to my orchestrator, uh, then it was finding the right person for the job. So it really depends of what sort of modes you're working with. If you're working with stock modes, then it's going to be fine. These instructions are enough. But if you're adding custom modes, then you should really change orchestrator definition also a bit.
okay. That's some good input. Okay, I'm going to throw this. If you're looking at my screen, we're going to try to one-shot this again with Sonnet. Let's just make sure we have this set up right. We have some money on our account. Compress the prompts. Yes. Somebody asked about the thinking tokens. Uh, I put them here. If you look at my screen on bare minimum, since this gives it enough random thinking, but it doesn't go too crazy. That's my experience. Okay, let's do this, and I need to change it. Matt, it would be really useful if there was a way to just like mass change all my modes for the guys like me that don't use different modes for different models for different modes. It's a feature, but when you have a whole bunch of modes, oh man, does it create work? But I don't even know what a realistic way to implement that would be, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, do you have ideas for the best way to present it? And I could see how people might want it.
I've been thinking about that, and the issue is it makes the UI more complex, which is sort of we're trying to avoid. We're trying to put the complexity of configuration in the settings, guys, and not in the front end, because we have heard some people say, it's confusing. And so we're trying to make it easy for the people that just want to use it and complicated for the people that want to experiment in their spare time or while they're being paid at work, maybe. Oh, by the way, I gave it some custom instructions here to speak like a pirate. So I'm not sure how well it's going to listen to that. Ahoy there, matey. It's working. It is definitely going to confuse itself. Okay, questions. Is Roo Rules like cursor ignore, or does it work different? Matt, can you try to understand?
Sorry,
We
is
have
it
Roo
like,
ignore, by the way, everybody. We do.
yeah, Roo ignore is similar to cursor ignore, and Roo rules is similar to cursor rules?
Okay. Any plans to introduce autocomplete that surpasses cursor? Well, I mean, introducing autocomplete would be one step, but one that surpasses cursor. I mean, they're pretty good at that. Credit where credit is due. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but that autocomplete is not as simple as a extension, is it? I think Copilot does it as an extension, doesn't it?
I think Adam was saying that you can enable it in Copilot if you want it, yeah, but it's like built in. I mean, Continue, I think, has autocomplete as an extension, and you can run your own local LLM for it. My sense is it's probably not going to be as good as what Cursor does, where they have their really powerful hosted LLM that they subsidize by your monthly payments. So yeah, I'm not sure the best solution. Like certainly open to letting people configure that. But I don't really personally want to get into like, well, it feels premature to get into like the model hosting business at Roo right now and everything involved in it. So I think
Well,
for now, it's, yeah, maybe someday. But
that would be, I mean, it would be sort of interesting to have autocomplete set up where you could select your model, including your local model. But I mean, it does sound like a rather complex thing that if someone made a pull request, we could probably look at. But to dedicate time internally at this point, when we have such great tools like Cursor that actually do it pretty good, it does seem like spreading our energy a bit thin. So I
yeah,
guess the
yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
curious.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, if people use Continue and you think that that experience is good, like I would bet we could do something similar to that. So yeah, I would love feedback. I honestly use Roo within Cursor myself, so I'm spoiled by having the best of both worlds. I think on the with their completion and our agent. But yeah, definitely open to feedback from the community.
Yeah, Copilot is
Okay.
pretty well tuned. Microsoft specifically has a model now designed for very, very, very fast auto completion. And we have things in Copilot like uh, next edit, next edit completion. So literally, if you go change or add, let's say, a field in a struct, and you're reading the struct, let's say, or writing it to a database, it will
Yeah.
suggest, hey, adding that field to write to the database later on and stuff. So it's kind of getting advanced now.
Well, and with Microsoft working on those, I think keeping our focus to try to get these large language models to really, I guess, integrate well with the vibe coding methodology with for newcomers and for um, old ruse. Um, I think so that it's not just a messy, you know, vibe code, because I hate that term. Vibe code is such a, to me it's messy, it's chaos. I want it to be where um, seasoned developers can click a button, go do something else for a minute, work on some other stuff, and come back and go and check it over and not be like, well, this is just slop. And we really want to continue to focus on making iterative tasks, the subtasks, uh, move towards being able to do that effectively, because I think that for a noob, it's really great to be able to look and go, ooh, all this stuff. But for a seasoned developer, it's not great to look and go, oh, well, you just ruined this and ruined my stuff and. So we do want to focus our energy on that. So our
Yeah,
answer is maybe go ahead.
yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, there's some discussion in the chat too about what the niche is for Roo. I think what we're most focused on right now is just the power of the agents for building stuff, and how well can they build stuff? How well can they help humans build stuff? How
Mhm.
well can they do this semi-autonomously? I think that's where we're doing the best right now, and that's where I feel most excited to double down. And things like autocomplete, yeah, it just doesn't feel like it's 100% the sweet spot of our focus.
That's solid. Yeah. Somebody said, are there any plans for Roo to have a revenue model? Is there is there any corporate contribution or is it just community run now? Basically, what's the long-term plan? This is we do not have any plans for monetizing in terms of charging people for our software. The community helps us build our software and the community uses our software. We did look at the possibility of, making a few pennies off of API calls by having a provider, but we're worried about splitting our focus on things that don't help us continue to grow our software and really pay attention to the community, because we don't want to become those guys that grow and stop and turn our back on the community. So anyways, we don't have a plan for collecting money from users. In terms of our revenue model, we're exploring right now enterprise support. There are tons of companies that see these tools and run into the situation where, well, how do we implement them in a way that is secure, and that's huge with data leaks. But how do we actually give our guys not broken tools the support they need? I have seen where implementing software within a company often leads to people just not using it, or using it the bare minimum because the man is looking over their shoulder. And we don't want Root to be the tool that people are forced to use because the boss has picked it. We want it to be the tool that the employees or engineers like to use. So enterprise support is how we're exploring to do that, the delivery method.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, we're all in it every day, in it enough to go to Discord office hours with Hannes. But yeah, I think in reality, there's a lot of people right now who don't use AI at all, or they're, dabbling with the idea of maybe using their co-pilot thing that they've, just kind of been looking at for a long time. So I do think there's just a big, like, how do you even get people to consider this aspect of it that feels bigger than any of the, frankly, micro differences between, different people in the space. So I think when I talk to companies, that's kind of the battle that they're thinking about right now is, in theory, everyone is getting way more, way more output out of the stuff, but in practice, not everyone's like doing it. So I do think there's opportunities for us to help people understand the power of AI coding through what Roo can provide. And yeah, I think that the open source nature of it and people who already know how to do it is a separate beast. Where, yeah, like Hannah said, that's not where our focus is in terms of monetization.
Yes. And we don't want to be the bad guys. So we're trying not to be the bait and switch guys. We do appreciate the people in our community.
What about turning on
Your
GitHub sponsorships for people that do want to give money to the community?
it,
Something simple
my
and
thought is
lightweight.
this: in my previous life, I have worked in some trades areas over the years, and one thing is when doing work for people, either you charge them the full price or no price, because charging a discounted price isn't worth. So I don't want to go here. Community contributions. Okay, great. We get a few $100 here and there. No, I mean, um, if we're going to charge something, it will be solid and fair. But otherwise, I just love people participating. I don't want to take people's money to do it. Um, we want to define ourselves as a company that works um, upfront and transparent. And I think that the funding model through enterprise is the way that we could obtain this funding, because with the number of companies with these types of solutions, I think that support for this type of stuff will be solid funding opportunity for a number of years. So community contributions, I mean, just keep doing what you guys are doing. I did see somebody post on Reddit, I think the concept of creating a funding opportunity where they would pay community contributors somehow, which is neat, but sounds like more administrative work. We do try to give thank you API keys out to people that contribute, but it's not a lot.
Yeah, that's what I would. That's
Go
what I
ahead.
use it for. Is that's what I would use it for. Community contribution, not to fund the company, but to reward people and stuff. So there is a thing called Open Community, I believe, and you can set up bounties in there. So you can say, "Hey, I want this feature. I will pay this much for this feature," and people can pick it up. Obsidian also uses that internally. They say, "Hey, I'll pay $300 for someone to add an importer for OneNote, for example." That's a common thing. They import stuff from other to-do list products and things like that, and they just put up a bounty, and someone will pick it up or not. Anyway,
Yeah.
just an idea.
Nope. Okay. Might be a noob question, but I spend my time copying error codes into AI. Is there a better way to do that? It really depends on the error codes that you're experiencing. Are you talking about the problems window? This is Eddie 68216. And terminal. Well, the terminal errors should feed back into. They do almost all the time for me. I'm trying to identify when they don't, but almost always the terminal errors feed back into the model. I think some of the problems I have are when the model actually ignores them as it just focuses in on what it's trying to do.
We have a new speaker.
Oh, hey guys, by the way, 3.7 thinking, 100% one-shotted this. I did not give it. It kicked the crap out of 2.5. 2.5 pro experiment failed miserably, and preview it did the bare minimum. So, and it even talked like a pirate.
2.5 is pretty bad for front-end tab, by the way. I mean, I don't use it for front-end at all.
Wow, well, there you go. Okay, there are a bunch
I
more
use
questions.
DeepSeek.
Yeah,
I
go
use
ahead.
DeepSeek Chat. Imagine, not even a thinking model. DeepSeek Chat is better than Gemini 2.5 Pro for front-end tab. And Quasar is also good. I'm experimenting with Quasar sometimes for front-end, but Gemini, no.
Okay, I'm just pulling up the questions here. Before we close out in 20 minutes, I want to cover local models again, as I promised Adam.
Okay, so someone had a very specific question about parameter. What is a parameter? Okay, so very quickly, a large language model is a series of very large matrices in very large dimensions that are connected. And so the connections between the various layers of an LLM are added and multiplied together and come out with that really big ass number that all the companies tout. So number goes up is always good in a human perception. So 175 billion parameters trained on 175 billion parameters. That's the number of connections between all the different layers of the LLM, from all the inputs and embeddings to all the outputs to all the normalization and equalizations that go in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell, basically. And sometimes larger models are not smarter. Just like sometimes larger quantizations are not smarter than a 4 bits, and some models are just as good as 8 bits, and they take up half the memory. So
Okay. I have some questions I've extracted. I'm curious. I've heard the whole DeepSeek thing that deals with large code bases. I was rolling self-contained HTML. Okay, that question is way too many words for me to read out and understand in the same time. What are the top three local agentic models that you prefer in RooCode? Can anyone share your experience? Adam, what
So I'll just
are
come off.
the...
Mine
Okay.
is mine is Quinn Coder 2.5, either instruct or distill. Quinn, except for the one that is trained on Hugging Face by a guy named Hyman, none of the local models really know how to do tool calling very well. The one that's specifically trained for Klein to do it behaves a little bit better, but not by much. So agentic, you're going to use that word in there. No LLMs do a great job at it. They handle MCPs better sometimes than straight up tool calling like what we have built into Roo. So, buyer beware. But like I said, Quinn, some of the DeepSeek ones are okay. Most of this stuff is not one-shottable either locally. So it's better if you're in your code base, hey, I need to implement a page, some methods, I need to write some tests, things like that. Agent models behave and work a lot better for stuff like that rather than one-shotting stuff. We will see if that is all these vibes that I have are true and everyone else has when we get evals working. Because then we'll just hook it up to a local model and see if it can make the Roo logo bounce around or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. I told it that it was so ugly, by the way. The page is so ugly. I mean, look at it. The bouncing orange is so cool, but it looks like GeoCities.
Someone to make a poll right fast to see who uses mean prompts that I've seen. They're called OTT prompts. They sound like Hunter S. Thompson yelling at you, Gonzo
Yeah.
style, versus nice prompts.
That
How well
would
do they
be
behave?
interesting. Could I run LLM Studio inside Proxmox server virtual environment or VM if I give it the GPU?
I would say provisionally yes. I'm not a big Linux person. Docker, for example, on Windows can see the GPU and can do GPU offloading. And as far as I understand, LM Studio works well inside of a Docker container inside. And Ollama is the same way. If it can see the GPU,
Yeah,
if it gives it
Ollama.
GPU acceleration, it usually works.
I'd say Ollama is a better choice if he's using CLI. I mean,
Yes.
That makes sense. How good are the results with local models versus SOTA models? State of the art models is SOTA for anyone that isn't familiar with what that means.
What does soda mean again?
there is no comparison.
State of the art.
Oh, yeah.
They don't touch the local models. Yeah, they do not touch it.
I mean, define what they mean by local model. I mean, when I go into this, even the Discord community of local model, I'm expecting people to be around 70B models maximum. That's what I think they're saying by local models, because DeepSeek is also a local model. It's a 600 gigabyte model and it's good, but nobody's running it. I mean, if you're discussing everything, then it's I think it's between 70 billion parameter models or mostly 32B, I think. That's what people are running.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you consider the best coding model that can run on a single consumer GPU with 24 gigabytes of VRAM? Which local model provides the biggest context size that is usable, reasonable tokens per second, that can run on a consumer level model? What is the most cost-effective way to run larger models locally? Now, before you answer that, I would like to say that the reasonable tokens per second is pretty variable opinion, because what I find is people that run these sometimes try to figure out ways to run them overnight, because getting the 70 tokens per second you get out of, state of the art models is just not happening if you want quality on a local machine.
Yeah,
So
like I said, I still fall back to the Quinn model. 14 billion is all you're going to get to run on a 24 gigabyte VRAM 3090. The only thing you can do to make it better is to get another 3090 and put it in there, and then you'll take a little bit of a hit because it's got to communicate across NVLink and stuff like that. So it can split. You can't split an LLM across cards. It's a $3,000 card.
yeah. What is a real use case for LM Studio? For a normal machine, M4 with 16 gigs of RAM. I don't see it right now. That's correct. 16 gigs of RAM on an M4. You could probably run a embedding model, something little like that. If you're
Could run an
to make,
8 billion parameter models for fun, but not for coding.
if you want to
Yeah.
experiment with stuff.
Yeah, and Phi from Microsoft runs small, and there's a small Gemma model too. There's actually a small 4 billion Gemma model that does images. So,
Yeah,
if your use case is counting pelicans, for example, in a picture, it might work.
yeah. Okay, let's.
Adam, I wanted to ask, do you prefer, while running local models, would you prefer a Point32B coder or a distilled version, R1?
I have not been able to make a good distinction between those at all. I mean, and sometimes it's not, they're not really clear about when they do an instruct version versus a distill version. It's like there's like the model that was tool use trained. Like, what actually is it? It's a DeepSeek model, I think. But what modifications were made to it, things like that. The chain of custody, as I like to call it sometimes, is not very clear when people are doing it on their own.
Yeah, I asked because I didn't have a good experience with the thinking model locally. So I just fell back to Point32B coder, the regular version. That worked better than the, thinking model.
Yeah, I agree. Thinking is not a local LLM's strong suit at all.
Someone
Maybe
said.
tic-tac-toe.
Go ahead.
I said maybe tic-tac-toe or checkers, but nothing beyond that probably.
Yeah.
Oh, credit balance. Look at that. Okay. There is, we'll take one more of these local model questions. Does speculative decoding make the prompt less detailed? Did I already ask that question?
Yeah.
I
The
think
answer
so.
was
Okay.
the answer was kinda.
Okay.
There's probably
Why
removing words
use
that don't matter.
LMs? Why use LM Studio now? Local models are not good enough on normal machine. No, that's a good point. If you really want to get the business done, then I think that it would be best to use one of the soda models. So it looks like that bouncing
Local
logo.
models are for people, enterprises who have privacy concerns. Mostly they want to, build something up on their own and they have highly secure, privacy issues. Otherwise, you're just better off using some, large language model online because, it's going to cost you less money, less time. Time is important also, so it's going to cost you less time. Just better.
By the way, I forgot to show this. It is working.
Is it from Sonnet
That,
or Gemini?
yes. That is Sonnet. 100%.
Oh, look at this. You name it exactly the way I do. OR Sonnet 3.7 thinking. That's exactly I have named it.
I'm trying not to get confused. I'm constantly deleting the ones I don't use. Okay. What do we have for questions?
So what did that one
So
shot
I
cost
have
you? I'm
to
curious.
I have no idea because
Oh,
Boomerang Tasks 2.0 isn't out yet. I would have to add up the
oh,
various.
okay. All
Um,
right.
let's see. At this point, I've passed one shot. Hey, look at this. This
Oh,
is an
even Sonnet
error.
had this issue.
That is a first. Now it's going to
Good
write to
first.
file
There you go.
for me, which, oof, I hate that.
Oh, but at least it auto corrected itself in the next go. Gemini wouldn't do that, you know?
Sometimes preview does.
Yeah, preview is better.
Do you guys know why when running Roo inside of a Docker container and trying to open previous tasks, it just deletes it? Probably have some. The reason why it deletes it is because they don't exist. Um, when Roo writes them to file, it also puts a placeholder, the title, the short description, or whatever, into your global state of VS Code. And then when you go to open it, it checks that and goes, "This doesn't exist," and then it poof disappears. So that all the details, all the data for that don't exist. So the issue is likely having to do with Docker's um, write restrictions, unless you open it up to specifically allow for that. And I'm not a Docker pro. You need to
A similar
persist.
issue is when
Ah,
you use SSH, remote SSH on VS Code as well. So suppose I log into my remote SSH machine and install RooCode inside it. It's going to delete all my local RooCode chat history. And then if I do something in the remote SSH and go back to my local, again, it's going to delete the same thing. So they're not going to be syncing and they're not going to be separate either. There is some sort of conflict between them. I'm not sure why.
hmm. Okay, let's see. Enterprise usually just have a contract with AWS. Yes, yes, absolutely. That's what we're seeing because the local models just aren't cutting it. Okay, 10 tokens per second, yes, is the reasonable. 10 or 12 tokens per second is sort of the minimum, it seems, that people. I think that's about reading speed. Is that correct?
Yeah, probably for most average readers.
Yeah. So I think that's why. So for if you're using it to write stuff that isn't code, then 12 tokens per second is just fine most of the time. Give it a head start, and you're ready to go. Okay. Um, Does anybody want to know anything about anything upcoming? Do they have any thoughts, ideas? Do you use boomerang tasks? And if so, are there some areas that you would like to see some improvements? What did I ignore you for? You can jump on the mic, Daniel. I said what you said. You need to persist your Docker storage. I thought I repeated that. Sorry, Daniel is here. Local models. Local models will be more relevant after we have the indexing feature. Okay, yes, that's true. Local models absolutely will. Being able to use, what's it called? Local models to deal with the embeddings will make a big difference.
Okay, I
Is
have
there
to
a
leave
way?
now. It was
Okay,
really
thank
nice
you, sir.
talking to you guys. I'll be listening.
Much,
Yeah,
much appreciated. Is there a way we can
thank you. Bye bye.
visualize each boomerang task once completed and which is pending? Well, here's the thing with boomerang tasks, there aren't any pending ones. There is only the one you work on because it will come up. The results of a given boomerang task determine what the next task is. So even though the large language model might come up with a go here, you need to do this, here's 5 things you're going to do. When it finishes the first one and goes, oh, I need to actually correct something, it might go into another one. So knowing which ones are pending is sort of difficult in that regard. My experience has been losing track of what it's supposed to do and sometimes create subtasks within. Ah, yes, that's something. The subtask within subtask is something that we need to definitely address. Thank you. Uh, I don't think you can disable access to the new tasks. Oh, as a feature. Yes. No, that's actually, that would be the easier way to do it, wouldn't it? Good call. Thank you, Daniel. Maybe add something to default prompt telling it not to use comments. That is interestingly not that successful. Because if you're using Gemini 2.5, you can tell it not to comment all you want. And there's like a 50-50 chance it's going to ignore you.
Yeah, because it's been trained on the fact that good code, good matches for an input and an output have comments in them. And Google, I know this because I know a lot of people that work for Google, they are really big on commenting their code. So that LLM was trained on Google's code base. Because they have to have teams that can just pick up a code base and start programming. This was, before AIs existed. So documentation was kind of big to them.
If anyone didn't know, Mr. Ubens is the lead developer. I'm the person that makes all the noise and talks and listens to my own voice and interacts, saying stupid things in the chat. Mr. Ubens, or Matt, is the guy that actually's got quality output when it comes to questions. He understands how everything works. I understand how to use RooCode quite well. I think quite well. But Matt understands not only that, he is constantly, um, knee deep in the code base. So yeah, he's the brains. It is 11 o'clock. Thank you everybody for coming. You guys have a excellent day.